Hey, pull up a chair. It's Hacks on Tap with David Axelrod, Robert Gibbs, and Mike Murphy.
What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened, I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
All right, here we are, fellow junior astronauts, in our post-debate show. I'm sorry if my signal's a little scratchy, guys. I'm sitting here at the departure lounge at Air Portugal at JFK. It was a grim night for America. What do you all think?
I don't even know where to begin. Those first 10 minutes of that debate were a nightmare. They were the nightmare scenario. I mean, we talked about it at length earlier in the week, you know, that Biden needed to be engaged, needed to be on the attack, needed to drive a message, needed to reassure people who had concerns about his fitness. And he came out and he seemed lost from the beginning. His voice was shot. I mean, it was almost as if it was calculated to, you know, exacerbate those fears. And, I think he got more energetic as the night went on, but the night was lost already. And, all I can tell, and I'm sure that Plouffe, you had the same experience. My phone was blowing up there on the CNN set with lots and lots of prominent people and a lot of prominent Democrats saying, we're fucked.
Yeah, that was the international texting thing. It was like the day after Pearl Harbor.
And still this morning. Well, who knew that discussion we had earlier in the week about the replacement scenario was so on point? But listen, I'll start with some caveats, which is one, I think Trump had a pretty bad night too. And I look at it through the lens of, was anyone who was undecided now going to move to Trump? I really don't believe so. And that's the tragedy, really. And secondly, voters parse this a little bit differently than we do. And, some of the focus groups that some of the news organizations did last night, they were all very critical of Biden. It just exacerbated their existing concerns. But, they were pretty harsh on Trump. So, I doubt we're going to see some seismic change in the race. But the truth of the matter is, David, this does remind me of 2012, but on the inverse. Close race, but we had small but persistent leads in the battlegrounds. Trump has that right now. So Biden has to address his biggest challenges, and the one most in his control was to convince people that he was up for this job. And obviously he did the opposite last night. And, at the end of the day, I'm not sure we have another debate. If I were Trump, I'd seriously consider not doing it. But,
you're not going to do
we'll
it.
See. Right. So, I just think these linger, and I think that we're left with the situation because he's Donald Trump. It's not like this is going to turn into an 8-point race. It's still going to be close, but it was a huge missed opportunity. And I just think, we've all we've prepped candidates. Trump provided so many openings, and some of them Biden tried to take advantage of, but, he just couldn't land the plane. And so they just didn't stick. And so here we are, where I think there's going to be a freak out for days here. The Biden campaign is saying, of course, he's staying in. All the candidates who would run if he didn't are issuing expressions of support, which is right. So at the end of the day, this is going to come down to Joe Biden's closest advisors. And I think the one thing I see people saying who want to be an optimist, and I'll shut up, is, well, George W. Bush lost his first debate and he won. Barack Obama lost his first debate in 2012 and he won. But huge differences.
Well, maybe that was the whole thing, Plouffe. Maybe they studied those earlier debates.
Well, listen, maybe this is a genius plan to drive down turnout. They want a low turnout election, so maybe that's what this is about.
I'll tell you, it was a complete disaster, and I agree about Trump. He was awful. But it didn't matter because Biden was so busy confirming everybody's worst fear and making every Republican attack seem completely true. So now Biden's going to be in this hell week, not only of all the process reporter of sources close to the governor of whatever think he shouldn't run and all that, there will be a legitimate, public, painful discussion about whether or not he can do the job of president. And that is not political hackery. That's actually a legit thing now created by last night. And that's going to take space, and that's going to move numbers. I agree. I don't think Trump gained anything, but Biden made it all about Biden by not being up to it. That is the stark truth. And look, David and I have gone back and forth on this, but we fundamentally agree. The only people who can make the choice to replace the nominee are Joe Biden and Jill Biden. And that is probably unlikely knowing them, but I would not underestimate the pressure they're going to be under, and the pressure is going to be right. I mean, a message that we've been pitching for a while here on Hacks that I think we've been happy to see them adopt, which is, I'm about you, the middle class, Trump's about himself. That went out the window last night.
Yeah, where
Biden
was that?
stays in the race,
Where was it?
It's about him. And we didn't hear it in the debate. The debate thing was about tools. Biden does not have the tools. Tragically, it was the saddest debate I've ever seen because I'm for Biden. But it's undercut. Is Biden the selfish guy now, stepping back? And I think a lot of people are going to think he is.
Guys, I literally was up all night because I find this agonizing. First of all, that debate was a microcosm of the race, right? You had a thoroughly disagreeable, mendacious Donald Trump up there. And I do think that he reminded people why they didn't particularly like him in the first place. I don't think I know there was a lot of sort of triumphalism among Republicans, but all I could sit there thinking was, man, if this guy had a viable candidate against him,
right?
Deep trouble. But David, you're a logistics whiz. What are the practical? Let's just fantasize for a second here, because I think there are problems with an open convention that we should talk about. But someone told me this morning that they thought that there would be barriers to getting a different nominee on state ballots, but I don't understand why, because those usually key off of the convention.
Right. Ohio might be the one place, but that's not going to be competitive. But again, this is the fantasy part of the discussion, because as Mike said, unless Joe Biden and Jill Biden decide they're going to step aside, it's not going to happen. And I see no evidence that it will. But, if in some miracle scenario he decides to step aside, you basically are going to have to get close to 2,000 delegates. That's what's crazy. It's gross because it's not voters, it's delegates. Yeah. But I assume in that scenario, a bunch of people, including the vice president potentially, but certainly other governors and senators get in. They're auditioning. And as we talked about last week, Mike says there's perhaps a scenario where somebody gets so much momentum, everybody else gets out, and it's not contested in Chicago, perhaps. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And that's the tragedy of where we are, is Donald Trump is about the most beatable Republican nominee you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I will say this, you guys know this, the political graveyard is littered, Ron DeSantis being the last member of that graveyard, with candidates who look great on paper and can't hack the scrutiny of a presidential race. So some of the people that look great on paper right now in the Democratic Party won't withstand the glare, as you say, the MRI of the soul.
Which is why we needed a primary.
But somebody will, and I think they would walk into the White House. But that's not the race we have right now. And at the end of the day, but listen, it's not helpful. It's going to hurt their fundraising. It's going to hurt enthusiasm. And I agree, more than anything else, it's painful for people. They're hurting, man.
Let me just tee off on what I was pitching. And again, we are in fantasy baseball land. But if Joe Biden woke up today and said, God, I hate Donald Trump, and I really want to screw him, I don't think it's necessarily a binary choice between, an open convention, Democratic mayhem, AOC on the 8th ballot, and we take Biden to war here for the rest of the time, which is not optimal, to say the least. I think there is a scenario where Biden and Jill make the decision, and again, fantasy football here, but then Biden decides to lead this. And because I think there'll be a surge of affection for Biden if he does it, and he will be the patriot in the race. And he says, I'm for Gretchen Whitmer and Warnock or whoever the two superstars are. The thing about Gretchen is you get, one, a very capable person from a critical state. You get the first female Democratic nominee after Hillary. And if you manage that first 4 days right, and I think the affection for Biden, there would be a stampede to his choice if it looked smart, and the historic nomination of a female with probably an African-American running mate, whoever it is, that surge, there would be polls a week later showing them 5-6 up on Trump easily. And boy, the Democrats would be drunk with gratitude for Biden and they'd feel winning. Now, it may not sustain. You're right. Pressure test. I mean, she's been pretty well tested as a statewide governor, but presidential world is different.
Yep.
But I think you could go thundering into the convention with risk, but not mayhem.
Yeah, well, yes. Listen, I mean, the question is, there's risk everywhere you look here.
Exactly.
There's risk everywhere you look. But last night, the downside risk of Biden became much, much more pronounced.
Yeah, exactly.
They asked for this debate.
Right. See, this is the thing. Yeah. They had to know. The staff had to know. No staffer who's not working for Trump would ever have asked for and delivered that debate. So it had to be Biden. Biden had to have gone to the staff and said, I want to debate this son of a bitch. Let me do it. And nobody said no. I mean, that's the only theory I have to explain it. Maybe there's another one.
Well, but maybe it was a good idea, but ideas, they require good execution. And the thing that really bothers me, makes me angry, sad, all the things is of course, he knew how important this was. Most important 90 minutes of his life and important 90 minutes in American political history. He knew what he had to do.
Yep.
And I think the biggest problem is how old he looked and how weak he looked. But also, he didn't talk about Project 2025, what Trump's going to do. Their middle-class message, I'll fight for you, Trump will fight for himself, as you guys said, was nowhere to be found. And then those key moments around abortion and immigration and inflation were garbled. So that's my concern it's the moment he knew how big it was, his team knew how big he was, and he couldn't deliver.
Right.
And the only way out of this is another debate, because listen, they can have 4 events a day where Biden looks energetic and can run great ads and put Trump on the defensive on TikTok and Instagram and all the things. But that's not going to answer the central question that was in the race prior to tonight, last night, and is even more so.
Yeah, I agree.
But I just don't think, if you're Trump, you're just going to say, I don't want to put poor Joe through that again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I don't think a bunch of prep is going to fix Biden's problem. His problem is geriatric medicine. He doesn't have the toolbox. He can't do it. There's no better version of Biden coming forward, which is the real terror, because he's now opened this debate, and I don't think he has a way to close it. Of can he do the job? It was just so cruel to him that, as David said, David Axelrod, the first 5-7 minutes there of the slow walk out, and the first time he did the slack-jawed resting face, kind of looking in the middle distance, it was just devastating. And how do you unsee that? And how do we get new Biden doing the triple axel? I don't think that Biden exists.
Well, of course, and Murphy, I'm not sure this would have mattered, but the rules, this no audience turning off the mics, I think hurt Biden. Like if this was a town hall debate where they both had to engage with voters, now it might have been painful to watch Biden walk over to those voters, but he's an empathetic guy. So, if there is going to be a second debate, and I agree, I think Trump's going to say no way, no how. But if there is, I think trying to get an audience, not of hacks, but of voters would be pretty important.
I agree. It would maybe bring Biden to life. But, again, we're looking for a miracle cure here for something that was pretty a priori true last night. The move is that Biden has to step aside, but there's no way to compel him to, other than shame.
All right. Well, let's play out the other thing. What happens now? What short of another debate? He's going to have a convention, which also could be a star-crossed affair. And my guess is they're going to they'll scoot him in and out of that. He's not going to hang around. But I mean, now
doesn't want to miss the early bird at Denny's. Sorry, couldn't resist one age gag.
Honestly, if this is his obstacle, how in the world do you do it? I mean, I think probably what you have to do is just irradiate Trump. from start to finish.
Yeah, and State of the Union, put him on a prompter and let him do a half-decent speech because it's totally scripted, and hopefully he can just belt it out like he did the State of the Union. And that's all you got, and irradiate Trump. But the problem is the race isn't about Trump, it's about Biden, and that's what's killing him.
Yeah. What I'm looking for, though, because we've got to give people some ray of hope here, assuming that he does not submit to the realities, and that he stays. What does this assembled group of political wisdom, what would you do? I mean, I said one thing, which is I think you just gotta, your media and your surrogates have to just go relentlessly after Trump. It doesn't exactly solve the problem, but it at least holds its place. But what do you do to
the team? He never goes anywhere without Buttigieg, Mitch, Raimundo all around him. It's the action squad, and he's Professor Xavier. You want a contrast between the Biden team and the Trump team. President is a team sport, and you get all the brilliant 40 and 50-year-olds out there aggressive, and Biden is never alone again.
Yeah. Listen, I think you irradiate Trump, and then the best you can do is a vigorous schedule where I agree, Murphy. It's the cabinet. Also, Whitmer, Shapiro, Governor Evers in Wisconsin, all these battleground states in Arizona, Katie Hobbs, in North Carolina, Cooper. We've got Democratic governors. He should be campaigning with them. And the one thing that worries me is, I thought Kamala Harris was very good last night. She said, listen, we got off to a slow start. Now, she can't trash him more than that, but it admitted. But if there's a sense that, that the moderators were unfair, or he did a really good job when he didn't, I think Biden should say, yeah, I had an off night. But let me tell you what being president is. It's about making decisions, hiring good people, having the American people at heart, and that's what I'll do. And then attack Trump. It's not going to solve the central issue. So all you can do is, I think, by some major factor, increase the argument against Trump in every way you can. And then I think Biden's going to have to be out there more. And some people may say, well, God, after last night, why would you do that? I mean, it's not going to be worse than last night. I mean, it's just not. And the other thing, this is, this pains me to say, but we go back to the State of the Union. And my sense is it was the setting, it was the prompter.
Yeah.
But maybe there's been some more decline. We have to be honest about that. It has been 3 or 4 months.
And hard months.
Right.
Well, and the question is, if there's been decline in the last 3 and 4 months, what do we anticipate in the next 3 or 4 months? But the one question I have about your thing, Murphy, is what is it like? Does that come across as the team, or does it come across as the kids taking Grandpa down to Denny?
Yeah, no, that's the downside. But my view is we've crossed that line.
Right.
We're not talking about a living, breathing candidacy here. So you're going to, here's another thing I'd do. I'd have him in a 60 Minutes interview this weekend, and I would program him to be, look, it's not my style to stand up and trade insults with a toddler. So yeah, I had a bad night, but let me tell you from my heart what I'm trying to do here. Get him one-on-one with somebody, roll the dice. And if he's incoherent, then guess what? It's done. It's already probably done, but at least see if he can perform. And if he can, you get a bounce back, and you're not hanging out there alone for the next 5 days with a debate about how can he handle the nuclear codes. Now we know why he didn't do the Super Bowl softball interview. But he's either got to get back at bat and do something, and it may be too late for that, by the way, but I'm grasping to try to find something to do now.
I understand. That was kind of the theory behind the debate, right? That
we're a big restart. We're going to show them. Look out, Trump.
Tragedy of this, and listen, the Biden campaign will do this. It's just not going to be as effective. All three of us have spent time watching our opponents debate and think about, okay, what's our plan that night, the next day? What are we going to drive for a week, 2 weeks? Trump gave so much material from, I didn't have sex with a porn star, to one of the most important issues to people, childcare, wouldn't answer it. One of the most important issues to people, the opioid addiction, wouldn't answer it. That fits under the frame of he's such a narcissistic asshole. All he cares about is himself. Trump gave us so much material. And so the Biden campaign's got to find a way to drive that. It's going to be far less effective. But that's the other thing they have to do. But I agree with Murphy. Listen, there will people who say, look, Uncle Joe needs assistance, but that's just the reality. where we are. And so I think he's got to lean into, and by the way, there's contrast there, which is who is Trump going to hire?
Right.
There is value there.
That's why this VP decision is meaningful, because it is the first presidential decision. And so will Trump's choice reassure people? Actually, I thought Rubio did pretty well on CNN last night.
Yeah, Marco can slide under a closed door, but he's the right cynical choice for Trump. On the other hand, feral Trump will smell that, he'll need 5 more food testers.
Did you see his interview?
Still,
he was, Aaron Burnett, I guess, interviewed him and asked him about the provision in the Constitution that said 2 people from the same state couldn't be president and vice president, and he kind of laughed and says, "That's still in there?" He was good. I thought he seemed relaxed, but I still kind of think the Burgum choice.
It sends a reassuring. The establishment would like the Burgum thing. I've had more than a few Trump-hating senior Republicans say, "Look, I can live with Burgum because I know he's lying his ass off, and if Trump were to choke on meatloaf, the country would hold together. If Burgum were president."
Yeah. But so we extol the virtues of Burgum. We extol the virtues of Rubio, which probably means that Vance will be the nominee. But
or a Kardashian. That'll be the big surprise.
We'll see. But I think when there's maybe more meaning on this pick now, because I think people are grudgingly going to give Trump another look. These people who are hanging out. But man, I think you could cut a lot of ads out of his stuff last night. By the way, the thing at the end where the 2 guys were arguing about golf,
yes,
I felt like, oh my God, I've been like dropped in the middle of the Villages, and I'm watching a couple of guys in their golf carts.
Boy, when I did the poll to the Bob Barker, Adam Sandler golf fight before, how little did I know?
Yeah, man, you were prescient.
I think Biden would win the contest carrying the clubs, but it would take 2 days to complete the thing because we'd be moving at snail speed. It was horrible. I mean, boy, I'll bet the Chinese must have had an emergency Politburo meeting, which is, this can't be legit. This is some kind of trick, the whole thing. They're outfoxing us. It can't be this bad. Americans aren't that stupid. What's going on? Figure it out. Because it was so depressing. I went home, got a bottle of whiskey, and watched The Last Hurrah. It just broke my heart.
I saw some dial reports from yesterday, and Trump really did dial poorly.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they hate him.
It was largely, his gratuitous nastiness.
Right.
They don't like his positions. He, took a beating on that. He did well with immigration. He took a beating on almost everything else. So, abortion rights in particular, healthcare, taxes, did poorly with all of that. But the thing that really rankled people was him just being a jackass and being nasty.
I agree. That's why the Biden move is to sit down with that spring chicken Leslie Stahl and do a one-on-one thing for 60 where Biden talks about, I don't like being a jerk. I don't make it all about behavior, and that's why the bad night. It's just now I'm busy being president, and I have to go argue with a toddler baby who's saying I'm a Chinese robot. Really? Really? Let me tell you, there are people who can't afford their diabetes medicine right now. What do they think watching that crazy debate? And just try to be human, regular Joe, and then, go on about abortion for a long time. There's a move there. But again, I don't know if he's going to drift off to space. His resting face where the jaw opens is deadly.
Yeah.
We can't see that again.
We've all prepared people for debates. And Plouffe, the people who prepared Biden. They're very experienced. I think Michael Sheehan was there. I'm not sure. Who is an expert on TV.
Yeah, they've all left the country. But go ahead.
Presumably, they practiced. They showed him what
of course
looked like. I don't understand how that could have happened. I don't understand how the first 10 minutes could have gone that badly. One thing I will tell you is he arrived 15 minutes before the debate, and I'm wondering whether that was a mistake. But, he was – I honestly believe if he had performed the way he performed in the last half of the debate from the beginning, it still wouldn't have been good, but it wouldn't have been the disaster that it
Yeah.
was. So why did he start off so badly? And the question wasn't exactly a trick question.
Yeah, and Trump, I would say must have practiced 1,000 times. And listen, Trump got worse as the thing went on. But as we've learned, those first 10 or 15 minutes, sort of impression cement. So yes, you spend a lot of time practicing. When your opponent is speaking, what do you do with your hands, with your eyes?
Right.
Where do you look? So they did all that. So I'm sure that team, you and I have worked with them, Max, they went into it with a plan and Biden just couldn't execute.
Which he did 4 years ago. He did 4 years ago.
Oh.
It's not the same guy. That's the problem. It's not the same. There's no toolbox.
And in 2012 and in 2016, yes, we know he's got it. Right. That's the thing. It's not the same guy. So, but I agree with you, Murphy. Whether it's 60 Minutes, I'd even go on Fox. I'd talk to every TikTok influencer I could, every YouTube. You just gotta cover it. And listen, there's going to be painful moments and all that, but it won't be as painful as last night. That's the best that you can do. But that's what's so concerning to me. And the other thing, you mentioned the golf ridiculousness, and they spent like 10 minutes, saying who was the worst president. Quite frankly, that wasn't on either of their sheets, right?
Right.
These guys hate each other. I think they probably were getting tired. And so there was a lot of sloppiness. But yeah, the economy was so the thing is, Axe, they're running ads now saying, I'm about you, Joe Biden. I'm about you, the workers. Trump's all about himself. That should have been the first 15 seconds.
Of course.
And it wasn't. He went into Statland. And, but
which we talked about, we all kind of knew that's what he'd do. Look, he's uncoachable.
Yeah.
That's the problem based on his age. I have a bunch of director friends, and I have one who was talking about an actor saying, boy, 28 years in the business, and I've never had an actor who's undirectable. And Biden at his age now is uncoachable. And we just saw Biden being Biden. There was no technique or anything. Maybe they told it to him. I don't know what they did at Camp David, but it sure didn't penetrate.
Plouffe, let me ask you a question. Two, I know I want to hear from both you guys on this, but on the first one in particular, because of the precincts that you cover, what was I saw some of it, but what was the tenor of social media last night? What were the social media wars like? Do you have a sense of it?
I mean, yeah. And so here's the thing. Last night, but most importantly today through the weekend, this becomes a battle of memes and short form video. And I didn't have sex with a porn star is definitely getting some traffic, but the memes around Biden's age, his face when he's resting, that is going to dominate. So the issue is Trump was awful, I thought.
Yeah.
When you think about it through the prism of what he had to do, but the people who didn't watch the debate, I think mostly what they're going to see is these memes about Biden and his age. So this is really important. Like, it's not like it's going to get better, because I think as bad as it was last night, the original audience is probably going to give Biden a little bit more, I wouldn't say positives, but it'll be mixed. The people who didn't watch the debate, that's all they're going to hear.
Right. That also includes, Murphy, the people who didn't watch the debate last night also happen to be the people who are hanging out in this race. And so the people who you most need to convince are going to get their information from TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, no, all this bad stuff, it's going to get worse and worse, because they're going to hear a terrible debate. So they're going to go online and they're going to see slack-jawed zombie Biden, the mummy. Then it's going to be terrible. Then they're going to see the high-tone debate, or at least they're going to hear about it, of the Tom Friedmans of the world saying he's got to step aside. He's not up to it. And that's going to burn and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they're going to see the political hacks saying, holy Christ, we're going to lose. We got to get rid of this slow horse. So this thing is going to be 6-7 days of hell. And Biden's got to get on TV and do something to try to arrest it. But if I had to bet, I'll bet that'll be terrible too. So I don't think it's a zero chance that he's hounded out of the race. But if he wants to hold the Democratic Party and the country hostage and refuse to step aside, yeah, sure he can. There goes the selfishness argument, and Trump will have an excellent chance to win, even with his awfulness, because Biden blew Trump off the stage last night in all the wrong ways. It actually made Trump's lunacy less relevant.
I mean, I heard from a lot of incumbents who are on the ballot or who have an interest in folks on the ballot, and they're in full out
Bedwetting, pearl clutching, panic. I don't blame them.
Yeah. I mean, one candidate sent me a clip from Airplane of, I guess, was it Robert Stack or Lloyd Bridges, who said, I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue.
Yeah.
Plouffe, I got to believe if you're Chuck Schumer, if you're Hakeem Jeffries, if you're, a candidate running for governor, Stein in North Carolina, this has to be deeply concerning.
Yeah, because, the truth is because the Republicans have a bunch of shitty candidates in the House and Senate, which is kind of the story of the last decade. Democrats have a chance to overperform, but not if Biden is losing, competitive districts and states by, anywhere from 2 to 6 points. So those people won't say anything publicly, but I think the question will be, let's say Wednesday or Thursday of next week, as we really begin to get a sense of where the race might have shifted. And if it has even moved a couple of points more negative, you're going to see those candidates probably not on the record, but a sense that things have gotten worse for those candidates. And, the Republicans are out there talking about maybe we can get to 54 or 55 in the Senate, which seems like a stretch. However, if Biden were to lose a Pennsylvania or Michigan by 3-4 points, right. So, there's going to be absolute panic, and it could cost us the House because New York and California were already not where we needed them to be vis-a-vis the presidential. And we need Biden to be strong in those blue states to max our House wins.
Here's a scary California number, by the way. I saw a poll done about 2 weeks ago in L.A. County, 10 million people, almost as big as like Illinois or Ohio. Democratic-based county, Los Angeles City, and all the little cities around it. Biden's favor unfavorable. This is done by a reputable Democratic pollster you guys both know personally. Biden was 52 over 46 favor unfavorable in L.A. County. This is before the debate. So it's not like he had an 8-point lead. Boy, this could really blow the lead for him. He was in a pit to begin with, and that now this. We're skipping the mailbag hackaroos because, we're heading to the bar. We need a little medicine after the debate, but we'll be back. So send us some fresh questions, including about the debate or anything else. All you got to do is email us at hacksontap@gmail.com, hacksontap@gmail.com, or you can record a question on your phone on voice memo or a similar app and just email it to us. Don't make it too long. We're the bloviators around here, and be sure to include your name. And then finally, we even have an incredibly high-tech 1962 level phone answering machine somewhere in an off-track betting parlor in Chicago. All you got to do is call the impossible to remember number, which is 773-389-4471. I'll repeat it because who can remember that? 773-389-4471. Yeah, just leave us a message with your question and name. Keep it 20, 23 seconds or so. Maybe you'll hear yourself right here on Hacks on Tap. We love questions. Send them in, and we'll jump on those next week.
We're going to sign off, but before we do, I thought that we should give a last word to Jon Stewart.
Let me just say, after watching tonight's debate, both of these men should be using performance-enhancing drugs. I'm sorry. Both. As much of it as they can get, as many times a day as their bodies will allow. If performance-enhancing drugs will improve their lucidity, their ability to solve problems, and in one of the candidates' cases, improve their truthfulness, morality, and malignant narcissism, then suppository away. Guess what, everybody? They should be taking whatever magical drugs can kick their brains into gear, because this ain't Olympic swimming. You know what I'm saying? Oh, he solved the Middle East, but he was doping, so it doesn't count. There's going to be an asterisk next to his presidency. And by the way, if those drugs don't exist, if there aren't actually performance-enhancing drugs for these candidates, I could sure use some recreational ones right now, because this cannot be real life. It just can't. We're America. God.
I think he kind of sums up everybody's feelings right there.
Yeah. Well, we will see. It's going to be an interesting 5 days here. I've got one fast shameless plug on another topic, a little refresher. Had a lot of fun with Elena Ciccatelli doing the EVs for Everybody podcast, and she's launched it, and it's all about the auto retail business and EVs. It was a lot of fun. So you want to get away from politics?
Sure. It was electric, I'm sure.
Yes, it was high voltage.
We all need all the escapes we can get. But Stuart actually, MSNBC did this. It was only 4 people, but this debate watch party with undecided voters in Arizona last night. And one of the voters said after watching Trump, he's like, hell no. But after watching Biden, he was, oh no. And I think that's kind of where we are, which is people feel this. And by the way, I just want to say, I am worried. You mentioned the people who didn't watch the debate are, for the most part, going to overskew as sort of undecided, or are they going to vote? A lot of them young. So I do think there's going to be a difference between swing voters over 50 and how they rationalize this choice. If you're 18, 20, 22 and you saw that debate or clips of it, the age thing is more pronounced with that cohort. That's one of the reasons Biden's struggling. So I think as you think about the Manhattan Project to recover from this, that is the toughest on the pyramid.
Bobby Kennedy got some votes last night.
I know he's a listener. So, Mr. President, you're a patriot. This is easy if you make it easy. Wire the nomination for Whitmer and somebody and destroy Donald Trump. You will go down in history a lot better than you are right now. Do the right thing. We're not asking you to land on Anzio Beach here. You know in your heart what to do.
And for crying out loud, buy an electric vehicle, will you?
Yeah, American made.
Or an electric scooter. Yeah.
That's how we get the kids. You got it. We're putting, he'll do a little pirouette and a bird chase Trump around. I can see it now.
Plouffe, it's been great to travel this nightmare, and we hope that you'll come back soon.
Absolutely, X.
Murphy, and you watch David and Kelly and Conway and their podcast, The Campaign Manager. So,
and we're launching a new podcast next week, The Pearl Clutch. So get your grip ready. You're going to need it, Democrats. Holy crap. All right, guys. We'll be back next week.
See you guys.
See ya.